Today, I'm going to tell you a story about demonic possession, a topic that may sound vague and overused, but in reality, it's terrifying and deeply haunting for anyone who has witnessed or experienced it. I've been married into this family for over 6 months now. Everything was fine at first, but recently, strange and eerie things have begun happening in the house. It all started with my father-in-law. He was a hard-working man, thin but strong and resilient. From construction labor to concrete work, he handled it all. But about a week ago, he came home from work looking like a completely different person. Gone was the energetic, cheerful man we knew. His face became tense and irritable. He lashed out at the family for no reason. He paced around, muttering and counting under his breath, his expressions constantly shifting between happiness and sadness. His manner of speaking no longer resembled the man we once knew. That whole week, he didn't eat or drink anything. He wandered aimlessly around the house, filthy, disheveled, with a strange, foul odor. Sometimes he mumbled to himself in a corner. Sometimes he crawled under the bed, barking like a dog, and other times he'd attempt to climb onto the ancestral altar. Our family grew deeply worried. My mother-in-law invited a spiritual master to check the house and land. The master said my father-in-law had violated a spiritual rule and advised a ritual to ask for forgiveness from the deities. We spared no expense and prepared the offerings as instructed. After the ritual, he returned to his senses. He ate normally. His blank expression vanished, and he walked and spoke like his old self again. We were so relieved and thanked the master profusely. But after just 3 days, something strange happened again. My father-in-law seemed to gain a third eye. He could predict things before they happened, like how my mother-in-law and husband were pooling money to expand their vegetable stall at the market, or how a neighbor had been robbed, with the thief being the eldest son of the household and the money hidden in a banana tree behind the house, and many more strange things. He even knew exactly what we were having for meals or where lost items were. He acted as though he were possessed. Thinking he had been spiritually blessed, we considered having him formally receive and serve the spirits. But no, on a scorching midday, he suddenly called me out to the veranda and spoke like a man about to die. He said he would leave in a few days and asked the family not to worry. He would leave blessings behind for his descendants. I tried to comfort him, saying he was still healthy and would one day hold his grandchild. But he shook his head and said his fate was sealed. He told me where he had hidden all the money he'd earned throughout his life and warned us to be mentally prepared. That very night, he fell back into a delirious state, rambling incoherently, fluctuating between lucidity and confusion. His face changed constantly, no longer recognizable. As he had foretold, 3 days later, during a family gathering for my great-grandfather's memorial, the entire family was present. My father-in-law sat quietly with the elders, but after the feast ended, he disappeared. Panic broke out as everyone searched for him. Suddenly, children in the yard screamed. Relatives ran out and saw my father-in-law hanging from the banyan tree in the middle of the garden. People rushed to bring him down and perform CPR, but his body had gone stiff. He was gone. But that was only the beginning of the bizarre events. We held his funeral over 2 days and cremated him in Phu Tho. Meanwhile, I hired workers to dig and prepare his grave. Early one misty morning, 3 men went to the designated cemetery to begin digging. As the incense smoke lingered in the fog, they were startled to find my father-in-law sitting nearby. They tried to run, but their feet seemed frozen in place. He calmly told them to build him a nice resting place, slightly tilted to the east to catch the morning sun, and to cement the surroundings so weeds wouldn't grow. Then he vanished into the mist. Seeing he meant no harm, the workers lit incense and did as he instructed. The first few days of mourning were uneventful, but then the house began to feel unnaturally gloomy. Outside was bright sunlight, yet inside was pitch dark. Even turning on the lights didn't help much. My mother-in-law and husband returned to the market while I stayed home, pregnant and tending to the altar. Every time I brought food to the altar, I felt as though he were watching me. Furniture began to move on its own, and I always felt like someone was walking around the house. I brushed it off as just my imagination, until one night around 11 p.m. when my mother-in-law screamed from the back of the house. My husband rushed out to help her. She was pale and trembling, unable to speak properly. She said she had just turned on the light to use the toilet when she saw my father-in-law feeding the pigs. But he looked nothing like he did in life. His face was sinister, and his smile twisted and demonic. As she screamed, the light went out and the pigs went wild. My husband and I calmed her down, but deep inside, I shared the same eerie feeling, like something was lurking around the house. The next evening, a massive storm hit the north. I was restless, pacing around with my pregnant belly because my husband and mother-in-law were still out at the market and the power had been cut. Rain poured down in sheets. Lightning flashed across the sky. Suddenly I froze. My whole body chilled. I stared at the banyan tree in the yard. A lightning bolt lit up the sky, and I collapsed in terror. My face turned pale, and I couldn't speak. Hanging from the banyan tree was a figure, swaying in the wind. It looked like my father-in-law at first, but upon closer inspection, it was a woman. Her face swollen and bruised, blood pooling in patches, her eyes cold and lifeless. I scrambled inside and peeked out through a crack in the door, but the figure had vanished. Then I heard footsteps in the bedroom, chairs scraping across the floor. I hid by the door, trying to stay silent. The wind howled and the rain beat down. Suddenly, a gust of wind blew the window open. I saw a tall, thin woman with sticky, tangled hair gliding past. I covered my mouth in fear. She slowly walked from the back of the house to the front yard, scanning the area like she knew I was there. A flash of lightning lit everything up. Then darkness fell again. The ghostly figure disappeared. I sighed in relief and reached for my phone to call my husband. Then I heard water flowing. Panicked, I looked down. Water was gushing out from under the bed, dragging along something slimy, like human hair. I dropped my phone in shock. Suddenly, a monstrous creature, half human, half demon, lunged out and grabbed my leg. It looked straight at me, growling and snarling. My whole body went stiff. I blacked out. When I woke up, my husband and mother-in-law were back. Tears filled my eyes as I recounted everything. The next day, once the storm cleared, we invited the spiritual master again. He scattered rice and poured dog's blood around the yard. Neighbors crowded in to watch. After offering incense and casting lots, he approached the banyan tree, flinging salt at its base. The tree trembled violently, its leaves withering. We heard eerie screams, but couldn't tell where they came from. The master raised his knife to chop the tree, but an invisible force seemed to hold him back. He struggled as though something heavy weighed him down. He shouted and was suddenly flung to the side. Everyone panicked but was too afraid to help. Whatever spirit that haunted the place was trying to escape, but it was blocked by the blood and rice. The master quickly mixed ashes and urine, splashing it around. The spirit thrashed, leaving marks in the soil. He pulled out a straw effigy tied with red thread, chanted over it, and it began to smoke. He threw it toward the tree. As it hit the ground, it leaped and convulsed. The master swiftly drove a long steel nail through it and bound it with red thread. The banyan tree withered completely. He sealed the effigy in a clay jar with a talisman and assured everyone, "This was a powerful demon that followed your father-in-law home, but I've captured it. Now, just perform the Thanksgiving ritual and distribute porridge at the village crossroads." Everyone complied. Since that day, peace has returned to our family. The banyan tree was cut down, leaving an empty space in the yard.